Good afternoon. You're listening to WVBN, the world's choice for weekly news. Top news from Formosa today, as a decisive battle took place off the coast of China this week. The Empire of Japan, following reports of a large Morgana gathering near the island of Formosa, sailed south to deal with the issue once and for all. For unknown reasons, the original task force was split before arrival, with a smaller contingent sent to deal with a minor incursion near Okinawa. The remaining task force was led by Nagato. The fleet attacked the Morganas with ferocity, dealing a crippling blow to the enemy fleet organization almost immediately. For the next several hours, the Japanese Navy tore through scores of Morganas without an end in sight. The ships may have been ultimately defeated, if not for the timely intervention of the United States Navy, who arrived out of the blue to open a path for the beleaguered fleet to escape and resupply. These new defenders were fresh from a campaign in the Philippines, yet without hesitation sailed north to assist the Japanese. The enemy Morganas turned their scorn to this new prey, viciously attacking every U.S. ship in the fleet. Though they fought valiantly, weeks of heavy fighting led to the fleet to soon run out of ammunition, and prepared to retreat to the island. They surely would have, were it not for yet another timely arrival, as a small squadron of cruisers from the Royal Navy arrived to deal one small yet final blow to the Morgana fleet. Perhaps sensing they could not win, the remaining Morganas fled the battle in defeat. What could have been a devastating blow to the forces of humanity turned into one of the greatest acts of solidarity yet seen, as all three navies celebrated in the newly relieved port. Some suggested this effort was coordinated in advance, others that it was a miracle from God. Reports of celebrations and camaraderie have come out of the island in bulk. This one act of cooperation has given many around the world renewed hope that a global effort may not only see these monsters driven from our waters, but that we may grow closer as a global people. News from Italy. The Italian government continued its efforts in the Balkans and Eastern Mediterranean through further diplomatic outreach. Cultural exchanges were opened and hosted in the countries of Yugoslavia, Greece, and Turkey. Reports suggest these events may have helped alleviate recent tension between these nations, who may now believe that Italy is not looking for conquest. News from the United States. It has been reported that no sooner had the American fleet learned of the Japanese decision to relieve Formosa that they chose to act. After relieving the fleet, the Americans experienced their own trial by fire, with the battleship Maryland receiving a heavy blow. One destroyer was lost, and the rest suffered extensive damage. Worse still, the Japanese-controlled island was unable to resupply their main batteries. The fleet would have to wait for reinforcements or risk a journey to the Philippines. Even so, each crew received the personal thanks of Nagato's bell, an auspicious event which every sailor turned out for. After such a pitched battle, the crews are no doubt appreciating some shore leave. News from Germany. The Kriegsmarine found itself in hot water once again, as it defied the wishes of Adolf Hitler. The fleet had been ordered to remain in port to conserve resources, as the German coast remained safe from Morgana raiding. Despite these orders, the Navy sailed out to join the Soviet Union in clearing the Morgana starvation from the Baltic, freeing up lines of trade. Reports suggest German High Command was deeply angered by these developments, who were preparing for more offensive against their fellow man. It has been suggested that the head of the Kriegsmarine, Erich Raeder, may soon be ousted from his position. What effect this may have on the ships of the fleet is not yet known. Perhaps most tragically, the waters of the Baltic were quickly filled once again with the sightings of the Morgana treason, an ominous threat in the eyes of many correspondents. News from the United Kingdom. Just as the Americans had, the Royal Navy received reports of a Japanese fleet heading to Formosa to dig out the Morgana presence there. They quickly decided to set out to relieve them. Arriving instead to find an American fleet on the back foot, the small squadron of cruisers broke the back of the Morganas with their well-timed arrival and lifted the siege. No casualties were reported, and the British crews too received personal thanks from Nagato's bell. Elsewhere in the Pacific, the Singapore garrison was assigned to patrol French Indochina in addition to their regular duties. Outside correspondents noted that the Navy was now stretched quite thin, and theorized that some kind of deal had been brokered with the French authorities in exchange for protection of their colony. News from Japan. Thanks to the arrival of American and British fleets, no Japanese vessels had been lost in the battle at Formosa. Their timely arrival had led some to speculate that this operation had in fact been planned in advance, a theory given more weight due to the uncharacteristic splitting of forces halfway to the battle. Victory over these Morganas bestowed enormous prestige on the Japanese Navy, who were now seen as powerful protectors of Pacific interests. Not only on the island of Formosa, but in Okinawa too, where the Morgana Fire was driven out by the split force from Nagato. Each navy had the opportunity to learn more about one another, and above all else Japan had earned itself a place of strength in the naval powers of the world. News from the Soviet Union. The Soviet Navy ended the threat of the Morgana starvation in the Baltic with help from the Kriegsmarine. After the battle had ended, the fleet made for port when it received a radio transmission from Väinämöinen, the Finnish belle. With an abundance of caution, the fleet sailed to a set of coordinates provided and proceeded to rendezvous with the belle. There, the belle alleged that Finnish ships had been corrupted by Morganas and pressed into their service, unwillingly. The belle had awoken to protect her crew, but could not save the rest. She proposed to attack these corrupted ships together. The Soviet vessels joined her in attacking the Morgana destruction, and the presence of corrupted Finnish gunboats substantiated the Finnish belle's claim. Though it was ultimately a victory, one Soviet destroyer was lost and 2 more were heavily damaged. These revelations have cast into doubt any hope of a peaceful resolution between the two nations. The Finnish government charged that the Soviet fleets had attacked Finnish ones without provocation, who in turn claimed that the nation had willingly worked with the Morganas. Until the full truth is known, it is unlikely there will be peace. Finally, news from France. The Marine Nationale claimed victory over German trade interdiction this week, as a French destroyer squadron sank 4 U-boats. The government has not given an indication of how they achieved this, but leading theories range from code-breaking developed from Morgana technology to clandestine American support. Whatever the cause, the attacks are precise and deliberate, a shockingly accurate feat for any nation. Afterwards, sightings of the Morgana's mischief and despair were reported off the French coastline. That's all for this week. Join us again at WVBN as we bring you the latest news from around the world. From all of us here at the studio, stay safe out there.